All right, so we're back. I've got the camera back on because I guess it's going to show my frame regardless. And, maybe you want to see my face while I talk, and I like to use my hands. And so maybe that'll convey more information to you. Anyway, so I have been doing a little bit since the last video. If we just look at the commit history here, I think the last video was just like adding a payload assertion for that secondary memory or for that secondary member. I also had to like generalize the favicon or the favicon of the application based on the client that we're serving. Updated a few other things. Anyway, there were a couple issues with the zip code response, and when it turns out that I actually made a mistake. Surprise. The zip code that I was using for the test payload for the mocked response was missing the word county. And so when this came through on the payload that I was mocking, I was using this to assert on the text that should appear when the user types in a zip code, and it was just wrong because the name comes through as Cumberland County. Interesting side note, went into a little bit of a rabbit hole on this, but apparently the names of counties many times include the word county and sometimes don't. I live in Monroe County. That's the name of the county. The name of the county isn't Monroe. The name of the county is Monroe County. Which is weird because I also live in the state of New York. The name of the state is New York. The name of the state is not New York State. Just like people are not from Alabama State or California State. They're from California or Alabama, but not so with counties. Counties include the word county in the name. Just really, really weird. English is a fun language. Okay, so anyway, as I had to fix that, it was a little frustrating because look at all of the places that I had to fix the word county, and then elsewhere it says it's supposed to have value Cumberland County, and just all of these different places that I had to fix it. And then I ended up fixing it in the 1-member household spec, but the 2-member household spec failed. Just a variety of things. That we've also experienced in the past video or two have kind of brought us to the point where we really need to, we've already abstracted these specific details away from where we actually enter them in. And now we really need to, abstract these out of even their current incarnation into maybe a function, use some sort of indirection, and kind of dry up this code. So that is the point that we're at, and that's what we're going to do in this video, is basically make sure that if I have any issues in any of these tests, and there's only 2 right now, but we need to probably add 3, 4, 5 more like different full end-to-end flows, and then we'll probably be adding a handful of just little tests, like maybe some light error handling or something like that, but at least 3 or 4 more kind of end-to-end flows with different household compositions. So all right, let's jump into this. The first thing that we could definitely do right off the bat is just pull the entire form value object out into its own file, and then reference that file or that exported household member or whatever into this file. So we're going to kind of take this stepwise because we could definitely go all the way towards creating a testing library and exporting it from that. That's where we should definitely get with this. But let's just see things in a very let's just take things very incrementally so that we can kind of see how we get there instead of jumping all the way to exporting it from a library. So, all right, the very first thing is in TypeScript, and I would say modern JavaScript, but not modern JavaScript is a little bit weird right now. In TypeScript, importing and exporting things from files are just so simple. I would say, for maybe 80 to 90% of the use cases, very, very simple. And what we do is we can do a couple different things. Like Cypress has a whole support folder, which they're like, hey, create a page object model for your app and put stuff here. We're probably going to use this in a little bit. There's also commands, and there's this like end-to-end file. Anyway, so we could put stuff here, and maybe we'll just do like new file, and we'll say household member.ts. Okay, and what we can do is we can actually take this entire household member and we can cut it. So I'm just doing Control X on the keyboard, and I can paste it over here. And I just need to add a couple things, but I just need to add one thing to make sure that other files have access to this variable, and that is the export keyword. So TypeScript sees that keyword and it says, hey, generally speaking, other files can now kind of see into this file. I think TypeScript officially calls these modules. So it looks into this module and says, oh, hey, there's something being exported, which means we can get access to this. The other thing that we need to do is just make sure that any TypeScript types that we use are imported as well. So already I've put this into its own file, and now what I can do is I can click on household members and household member 1, and I can actually add an import that will bring that household member in. And now all of a sudden you can see the pattern that we're going for, which is if we move this file out of this spec, we have provided a layer of indirection so that we can reuse this code very easily and not care really where it's coming from or who else is using it. And of course, the other thing that this will allow us to do is if we do need to make any kind of updates, we just do it in one place instead of multiple places. So now what we can do is we can literally just get rid of all of this code because it really it's really just duplicate code. And down here where we build up our household members array, we can import that household member. All right, great. Now, we do have another household member, right? So should we do like a household member 2-ts? We could. That's probably not a great idea because of maybe just the concern about scaling. How do we just make sure that we know where to go for our specific household member? I think it's totally fine to group all of these in one place, and there's a good chance that maybe not in this video, but as we move on in these videos, that we start to generalize even the household member themselves and recognize the things that need to change, the things that maybe don't need to change, and kind of build little factory functions that generate these for us. So right now, I'm okay keeping household member 1 and household member 2 in this same file. And so we'll add the export keyword so that those are available. And we'll update the import. And just to be clear, we've got our specs still passing just fine, no problem there. And so all of a sudden you can see, hey, wow, our test files are a lot cleaner. We've got a good sense of, or I should say, we've decreased or we've decoupled the concern that this spec file has about managing or maintaining those mock household members, which is fantastic. Now you might ask, well, hey, how about our final form value? Yeah, you know, maybe this is the kind of thing that we want to pull out, except there is a little bit of a difference between between these two files, or sorry, between these two objects. They look identical, and in some sense they are identical in terms of like the words that get used to build up the object. But there is one or two key differences, and that is the length of the household and the members in the household. Okay. So in our one member household, this is an array of just that first household member. And in this spec, the two member household, this variable holds a reference to an array with two members in it. And so, you know, we couldn't exactly export this from another file and import it as is, because the first thing that it's going to ask is, well, where are these household members coming from? And so we're kind of passing it in here. So, you know, one option, and maybe we could just do this right now, is to generalize this final form value into some sort of, again, factory function that we could export. So why don't we do this right now? Why don't we copy this over into maybe not household member, but maybe we create a new file called household form value. Okay, and we'll paste that in. And this is really where the idea of being dry from the very beginning really is at odds with the ability to reason about how we're going to generalize things when we go to dry up code. Because, you know, if drying up code was only ever purely about eliminating duplicate code, then all we would ever need to do is provide a layer of indirection, and then, you know, reference the code that we need that's repeated from one source, and that's it. And we can all, you know, ride off into the sunset. That's not usually the be all, or that's not usually where you know, removing repetitious code stops. We usually have to do some sort of generalization and understand how things slightly differ. And so that's what we're going to do right now. And so essentially we have these two values, or these two objects that are being created. And again, the words, you know, the actual, like the keywords or the methods that we're calling, they are exactly the same, except they differ in the length of the array and then the array itself. So right off the bat, I know, or I can generalize these both and say, here's how they are the same and here's how they are different. They have the same tax year, they have the same state, household confirmation is true, and really just the thing that differs between them is the list of household members that's given to it. And so what I think I might do is I might say export const final form value. And that actually, what we're going to do is we're going to take, we're going to make this an arrow function, and we are going to take in household members as an argument. And that is going to be of type household member. And we are going to return the household form value. All right. Now it doesn't like this because I'm like using the same word, but this is essentially what we're going to do. We are going to take in an argument of household members, and we're going to return this object. And you can see GitHub Copilot is doing a great job, because that is exactly what we want to return, right? We want to return, let's see, doesn't like that I have the arrow body problem. All right, that's fine. So I do need these household member, unsafe assignment of type household member to a variable of type household member. That's interesting. I'm not sure I've seen that. It probably just means that I didn't import the type. That was a really weird type error that I just did not immediately recognize. All right, so now here is our generalized object. Whatever the list of household members is, that is going to determine what our household count is, and also the number, and also the actual members of the household. So now what we can do is, instead of, I'm just going to grab the name of the method, and I have exported it, so it does exist. It is available to other modules outside of itself. Is what we're going to do is we are going to instead pass this in, and we are going to pass the household members to it, and it's going to let's see, it's going to want me to import this, but it's not finding it. So that's okay. I can do a manual import. Sometimes Visual Studio Code does not always find stuff. Final form value. Let's see. Oh, because I've done it again. I've named the variable that we're declaring the same thing as the method that we've imported, or the function, the anonymous function that we've imported. And so if I just did like 2, that would be totally fine. Except all right, so here's what we should do. Let's leave the variable name alone, because final form value is great. What we should do is we should probably rename this method as like create final form value, right? Like give it a verb. Let's not get started on naming things. There's a saying, there are 2 difficult things in software engineering: naming things, cache invalidation, and off by 1 errors. So there are 2 difficult things. There was a joke in there. All right, so let's do create final form value. Now we're going to update the import. We'll get rid of this guy here, and there we go. Now the final form value, still the same, still down here just fine. And we actually now, oh, look at this. We could even just copy this code directly and put it over here. We just need to import that in, and now we're all set. So if we bring over our specs, let's see, create final form value. When Cypress detects uncaught errors. No idea what that means. An uncaught error was caught outside the test. Let's see if there's anything in Cypress. Let's just restart Cypress. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll find out together, I guess. All right, so I just ran the command to actually start this up. We're going to see Cypress start up here. We're going to start end-to-end testing, and we'll just see 1-member household. Cool. You know, I don't know exactly why that was. We'll do the 2-member household as well. Again, not totally sure why that happened, but my suspicion is something to do with maybe the way Cypress is initially, or the Cypress application is initially started up, and we added some new files here to the support section. I don't know. That's my best guess. All right, so here we are. We've got now, instead of like hard coding our entire form value in both specs, what we're doing is we're just really generating a list of household members. We're passing those as arguments to this create final form value function, and that is generating our final form value. So again, just a little bit of indirection to abstract away the specific details of what that form looks like or how it gets created. You're probably asking yourself, wait a minute, we kind of still have some duplicate code here. Well, yeah, that's true. Although I would argue that just by comparison, we have eliminated quite a bit of duplicate code. And the likelihood that this code is going to need to change for any reason is very, very low, right? Because now at this point, our spec file is pretty well set. If I needed to add or if I needed to change a household member, well, I don't change my spec. I go to the household form member, and maybe I want to change, Susie to Francine, right? Francine, there we go. That's how you spell Francine. And let's see, this is my 2-member household spec. Let's just double check that I'm in the 2-member. And does it still pass with Francine? Yeah, it does. Because essentially we've kind of made the test more flexible so that the test itself doesn't care anymore about what the name of the first person is. It could be anything, literally. It could be any just set of letters. And as long as, again, we don't break something in the UI, then it doesn't really matter. And that's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to abstract away that detail, that implementation detail, or that detail about the form, so that it just doesn't matter. All right. I think that's where we're going to stop for the video. But the next thing you may be asking is, what happens if we change something about the UI logic, or need to add a 3rd or a 4th spec? Now it seems like we're going to have a ton of duplicate code. Look at this date of birth form. We're going to need to do this for every single solitary member of the household, whether there's 1 or 5 or 15. And so now we're kind of thinking like, this code now becomes the issue if we needed to change the way we did date of birth entering in the form, or something like that. It just purely becomes a matter of, look at all of the different places now that we have to update our specs, and look at all of the specs that fail simply because we changed something about the way the UI works, which happens. Maybe it's not super common, but it happens. And now look at all of our specs that fail, and we have to fix this in 5 different locations. And if we only fix it in 4, then we have a 5th test that's failing, but we thought we fixed it because look at all these specs that we fixed. And then we're confused about, did this solution just not work? Or maybe I didn't apply it correctly. So, these are all good reasons to dry up your code. But now that we have 2 really good examples of our specs and the logical flow to these things, we can better generalize what's happening, the steps that we need to take. And believe it or not, we can turn most of these sets of commands into just simple functions that will run in line, that will do the things that we expect it to do, but kind of behind the scenes or exported from another folder. All right, so the last thing that I just want to look at real quick is this idea of exporting these things from the right place. So this is more of like a philosophical, architectural conversation, but it'll just be real quick. Basically, when we use the NX monorepo management tool, the architectural pattern that we want to try to follow as much as possible. Again, this is a time to use your judgment. There are very rarely absolutes in software engineering, and so we just kind of want to trend in the direction of having all of our code live in libraries and be consumed in applications by those libraries. Okay. And if libraries can consume other libraries, that's great. And then the apps don't even need to know about it. But generally, we want to have as little logic or business logic, as little production code in the applications as possible, and really have all of our code, whether it be production code or anything else, live in libraries. And there's a variety of reasons for that. which I'm not going to get into in this video, but there's a great book that the folks at Narwhal produced years ago on monorepo architectural patterns, and really since day one, this has been the pattern that we've been using with NX. Is most of your code should live in libraries. All right, so right now, we've got our specs, which I've actually seen people put all of their specs into libraries. We're not going to go to that length just yet, but what we are going to do is move these files out into an appropriate library where they can then be imported from that library rather than from a relative folder path. So I haven't really thought too much about this, but this will be a good way. Sorry, I have thought a ton about this, but I haven't thought specifically about where these files are going to live. So this will just be some kind of like real-time thinking out loud. We're going to generate a library. Usually there's a bunch of schematics available. There's Narwhal Angular library, Narwhal Angular secondary entry point, a couple other ones. We're just going to do a, I guess technically a Narwhal workspace library would work because there's nothing like inherently Angular about these libraries, but whatever. I'm just going to stick with the one I know, which is Narwhal Angular library. The name of the library is going to be, actually, you know what? Why don't we roll the dice and just say, hey, let's see what happens. So we're going to generate a library. We'll do a Narwhal workspace library. And the library name is going to be, let's see. So we've got this SLCSP calculator. Why don't we say that the name of the library is testing and the directory is SLCSP calculator, so that when the folder is built, you can see that it's libs SLCSP calculator testing. So it's going to live underneath this folder kind of as a sibling library to these other libraries, which I think is the right move. All right, so it doesn't need to be a buildable library. No, we want to stick with that. The linter, ESLint is great. Use Pascal case file names? No. We do want to set the parser options project because we do want to be able to lint these files using all of our TypeScript rules. Doesn't really need to be standalone config, strict. I haven't really been doing much with tags. This is a super, super powerful feature in NX that I just, every time I look at it, I'm like, I'm really gonna start taking advantage of that, but I haven't. Anyway, all right, so we'll run this and we'll see what we get. Hopefully it's just, oh great, and it's still updated Angular SLCSP testing. That's cool. All right, so here's our testing library. I don't know why Babel.js or Babel.rc is there. I guess as opposed to what? Something else? No, it looks like it's just an additional. I really have no idea. That scares me a little bit because I thought I said skip Babel.rc, useful for node libraries that are not compiled by Babel. All right, well, it's definitely not a node library. It's definitely a TypeScript, but use Babel instead of TSJest. I thought I was going to not see Babel there. Anyway, let's just keep moving. So we've got great, and this is essentially what we want here. I think we just want like a plain old TypeScript library. We don't need the tests. That's fine. And really, what we want to do is we want to go back up into our support folder, and we are going to just simply move these down here. For now, I'm going to leave these all in like the root of the library. Let's get rid of this file here. And I just want to make sure that everything is exported. So just as we can export things within a module to be exposed outside of that module, there's also this thing called a barrel file, which is like an index.ts file that you kind of export other files from. It's as soon as you do it like 75 times on a project, and you know, you kind of like get so familiar with the pattern, it's just kind of second nature. But essentially, the index TS of the root of the source will kind of look into your lib folder and choose things that will be part of the public API of this library. So if I import something from SLCSP calculator / testing, I'm only going to have access to the things that are explicitly exported from this index TS file. And so we've got lib, and then we want the household form value, and export from lib, and then what do we have? Come on, household member. Awesome. So now those two items have been explicitly exported. I think Cypress just died on me because there is definitely something up with like moving files in and out of the support folder. That's totally cool. So right now it's immediately going to complain. Let's scrap these and let's see if TypeScript already knows where to import them from. Yes, it does. Add import from this library, and we're also going to add to that. And so now everything is being imported. That's fantastic. Household member, let's restart the TypeScript server and restart the ESLint server. Sometimes when you move files around in a TypeScript project, either ESLint or TypeScript has the potential to kind of lose track of things, like not realize where files actually are, or I don't know. I just really don't know. So the workaround for that is just to restart the TypeScript server and the ESLint server, and like 99% of the time that works. And if that doesn't work, just close VS Code and reopen it. By the way, I work almost exclusively in GitHub Codespaces, and this is almost never an issue there. I'm working locally on my desktop primarily because Cypress is, you know, such a powerful application, such a powerful framework, but they use some technologies that don't really integrate well with Codespaces, or don't integrate well with Codespaces yet. And so I am kind of limited to doing Cypress testing on the desktop, but otherwise I would be in GitHub Codespaces. All right, so now if we also go over to this one, we're going to get rid of these local path or relative path imports and change these to library imports. But make sure I click on the right one. There we go. There's that. Add all missing imports. Fantastic. All right. And I will just restart my Cypress testing framework, and it only takes a moment. Make sure that our specs are still running, and then I think we're going to call it quits on this video. So we've got spec number 1 runs all the way through, fantastic, and spec number 2, great. By the way, there used to be at one point in time a way to run all the specs, but I don't know. There's like no button anywhere to do that anymore. And I don't know why that is, but it used to just be like a run all specs, and it would run everything. Anyway, that's okay because I run them all in CI, and it's not a big deal. All right, so that's it for now. I will see you in the next video.